So I was a family caregiver. I took care of my parents for about 3.5 years. I came from a farm in upstate New York. I live right near St. Joe's, and to live with me. And we thought, how hard could it be? They'll have dinner with us every night. They were healthy enough to drive themselves down. They had their oxygen machines in the back, but other than that, they were my mom and dad, and they were going to be with my wife, my kids every night for dinner, and I had this vague idea that then there'd be some caregiving involved. Well, I very quickly discovered how hard it is to care for folks who are really medically complicated. My dad had diabetes, probably stage 3 kidney disease when he was with us, and so he's fighting off dialysis. He COPD and CHF. My mom, same thing. They were both lifelong smokers, COPD and CHF, heart problems. She had a thing called colon prolapse. It's a horrible experience where your colon actually falls on your body. And life was tough for them, and for me in trying to help them. A list of medications as long as your arm. But great people, great parents, and so I kept doing whatever I could to help them, and didn't think of myself as a caregiver. I just thought they were coming to live with me. And I quickly discovered I couldn't do it alone. I started to get some folks from agencies to come. I ended up hiring my own daytime person, somebody from an agency, and I started needing to ask my other 3 siblings for help. And it was really hard to keep track of everything, and I just felt like a big game of whack-a-mole. I'd solve one problem, there'd be another problem over here. And the biggest problem for me was hospitalizations. We'd have some problem and a crisis, and we'd end up in the hospital with all the hassle and sometimes having to do rehab afterwards. And every time it seemed like a bump down for them. They would be doing fine, some little event would happen, they'd end up in the hospital. So the first 2 years they lived with me, we had 13 hospitalizations for various reasons, and it was killing me. I was trying to start another business, and it was just stressful, and I was angry and resentful of my siblings, and after a particular crisis, a hospitalization, I said I gotta do something differently. And I set about building what became Handoff. And really what Handoff is taking the notebook or the checklist that a lot of us use in the home and just putting it up in the cloud where, using an application where other people can help you and where the work you do can be recognized and used by doctors and home visit nurses and all of that. I did originally just to make my job as a caregiver easier. Easier because there was so much stress. Did I tell her this? Did she do that? Did I do this? Did I give, did I check his blood sugar before he ate or after he ate? Did he get his thyroid medication 30 minutes before practice? All the stuff that I was trying to keep track of, and it was really stressful. Once we took our checklist and we put it in the cloud so that I could do part of the job, my sister could do another part of the job, my wife could do another part of the job. My life, I had a sense of control, and so already my life started to get better. But a really interesting thing also happened, is there were 2 other important benefits that I didn't really set out to create, but I think are really at the core of why Handoff is so important. The first additional benefit, besides improving my life, was that when home visit nurses would come to the house, because my parents were in palliative care with Penn, they'd start asking to see Handoff data. Because instead of just asking my mom, how you doing, and to get a little social visit, they could see, geez, how are your blood pressures? What have your weights been? What's your greatest health concern? And they started talking about having much more productive conversations with my mom because they could see what had happened since they'd been there last. And in one event, they actually spotted a problem. I didn't know what a TIA, trans-ischemic
attack.
Transient ischemic attack.
Okay, and where it's a mini stroke. But apparently she had one of these while I wasn't around. A caregiver had noted this weakness in her leg and her complaint, but it went away, and she never mentioned it to me. But the caregiver, so the nurse saw it in the notes and said, "What about this?" And they drilled into asking questions, which then caused her to get worked up, and they discovered she had what was called an infected aortic valve, which if that infection had progressed, she would have had a stroke and been disabled. Instead, they had me or caregivers do home infusion for 30 days for that infection. She stayed out of the hospital. So having that data so that when you go to see the doctor or the nurse comes to the home, and let them do what they do really well, not just ask a question and have a conversation, but take a look at the data you recorded by virtue of doing the care plan and recording information, is one of the extra benefits. The other is the wheels are going to come off. At some point there's going to be a crisis, something's going to escape you, maybe you missed some medications or something, or they started to gain weight, and at that point, having this information so that when you call the doctor and say, gosh, she's really not feeling well, I don't know what it is, instead of having them say, go to the emergency room. Handoff has the ability to send the last week's information to a provider, and have that, and with that information, that twice with my mother, her cardiologist said, oh, listen, now that I can see what her trends have been, try this. And she had CHF episodes, so what they did is they had her cut down on her fluids and doubled her Lasix and took her off her blood pressure meds. She bounced right back.
So basically they were able to catch the little thing that happened before it got to a big thing.
Yeah, yeah. And even when it gets to kind of a big thing, they know enough about the trend of the big thing that they're able to, there's a chance that they, instead of going, sorry, you gotta go to the emergency room, because they don't really know what the hell's going on most of the time when you call up and say, but if you can call up and say, I think we have a problem, can I send you this report? Now they have a fighting chance to say, okay, I feel comfortable adjusting care in the home, right? So both, yes, we can detect it early like they did with my mom's aortic valve, and if something emergent, they call it, happens, there's a good chance that they'll be able to adjust care, they'll have the confidence to adjust care in the home. So that's really the why of Handoff, to give you a sense of control, because many of you are family members and you have other family members who are going to want to know how mom and dad is doing. And they'll be able to look in Handoff and get that answer, even if they're in California. They won't have to be calling, all four of them calling you and asking, how mom's doing. They will be able to see it. So you'll have a greater sense of control. Your regular doctor's visits or nurse visits will be more productive. And if there is a problem, you'll have information without trying to remember it that you can provide to providers that will give give them a good chance of adjusting care so that your mom or dad or the client can stay out of the hospital. That's the why for Handoff. And it's the proof I have that it works is the last 11 months after we started using Handoff with my parents, we had no hospitalizations. Went from 13 to none. And both my parents passed with me at home. And it was instead of in a hospital. That's the why.
You're